What's going on, everybody? Oh my goodness. Sorry about the delay. There was a last minute thing that popped up that just kind of worked with everything that we're going to be talking about tonight. So I had to try and rush and get that all taken care of. So, but yeah, welcome in to the Prophecy Misfits Podcast. This is episode 343. In with Flynn, and we're going to be going over some stuff, obviously with a guy named Flynn. It would be Michael Flynn, and it's always interesting to say the least when his name pops up, but there's some stuff on there that I came across that I thought we'd be going over, so a little bit of a dive with him, but we also are going to be going over a few. These are kind of like three mini dives that we're going to be doing tonight. Well, not one big one, but three mini ones, and we'll talk about Flynn with his connection to Palantir. It's a long and deep connection, apparently. We're also going to be going over some stuff when it comes to the connection between Venezuela and the Venezuelan chick who just won the Nobel Peace Prize, who dedicated it to Donald Trump. There's some interesting connections there. I managed to find a hole that just kept going, so that should be interesting. We also got some stuff when it comes to Turning Point USA and a connection to a lot of Scientologists. I knew there was a lot of issues with Turning Point USA, to say the least. I wasn't expecting that, so we got some stuff there and a few other things along the way. So we got some interesting things to go over tonight. So, but yeah, I'll just go ahead and address this right off the bat. Judith Maynor, it's been a rule for years now. It's even in the box that I just put in there. When it pops up when you first start chatting, I've made it quite known that if it's a pastor that I don't know and I can't vet, I will not allow them to be promoted on this channel. So you can try and twist it. Oh no, we're not going to honor the good ones all you want. But the fact is I don't know who that is. And so I don't want them promoted on this channel, because you may believe in something that I don't necessarily agree with. And I don't want confusion in my chat. It's been a rule for a long time. You've known that. You've been around for a long time. So please abide by my rules. If you're not going to abide by the rules, you will be kicked out. I'm not playing games with this anymore. It's just, I'm done with it. I'm done with it. I'm not playing games with it anymore. Abide by the rules or go somewhere else. Simple as that. I'm done with it. Anyways, welcome in, everybody. Glad to have you here. And I appreciate y'all coming in. This is what we do on Tuesdays and Saturdays. We get together and we watch for the crazy things that are going on out there. This world is insane, to say the least. There's a lot of darkness. There's a lot of deception. There's a lot of crazy things that are happening that are leading up to the coming day of the Lord and the things going on. So we get together and we watch for those things. We pay attention to everything that's happening. And yeah, that's what we're called to do. So welcome in. Glad to have you guys if you're here. So thank you. Anyways, sorry guys, it's just one of those things where things are as clear as I can possibly be, but yet people will try anything that they can to get around it, and it's getting frustrating. It's frustrating. It's like I don't understand why. It's like, if you got people that you like, that's fine, go ahead and do that, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go to channel after channel and promote them. And I've made it clear on here that there's a lot of people out there that are not good and present themselves that way. And there's a lot of people who watch who have different beliefs and stuff, and I'm all cool with that. But it doesn't mean that you need to promote them here. Simple as that. Okay. I've gotten to the point, and I'm sure a lot of people have recognized this, where I'm just, the further we go along, the further the gloves are coming off when it comes to a lot of the things that I'm talking about. And because we're in a time right now, we're in the thick of the war, the spiritual war that's happening right now, and we need as much boldness and strength and confidence in Christ, and to say the things that need to be said that have been suppressed forever, all in the name of tolerance, all in the name of don't divide, all in the name of just do it in a loving way. But the problem is loving has turned into cowardice and silence, and we need to be vocal. That doesn't mean we need to be mean. Doesn't mean that we need to be out there, putting our fingers in people's faces and whatnot. But vocal and boldness are something that we absolutely need right now. And we need to not be afraid to use it, because I think we've gotten way too lax, which is why the church is in the position it's in right now. We look at it, we see so many people that are saying, well, the church is falling apart, the church is dead, the church is weak, and so on and so forth. But those are the very same people who refuse to actually say anything that might actually change things, all in the name of, well, I don't want to stir the pot, I don't want to cause any controversy, when the fact is that's why the church is in the position that it's in right now. And I had no plans on discussing this at all right now tonight, but we're at this point. It's like, we need to start saying things. We need to start being bold and speaking up and not worrying about whose feelings we're going to hurt along the way. If you're hurting somebody's feelings, but you're still speaking truth in love for the right reasons, then hurting those feelings are justified. That's how I look at it. I know a lot of people won't agree with that, but that's how it goes. Abby Normal, he is the Sausage King of Chicago. Everybody knows Abe Froman. Anyways. All right. That's a little spiel I was not planning on going on, but needed to happen. Anyways, so let's go ahead and get into some housekeeping before we get into things, shall we?
Housekeeping?
No, thank you. Sleeping.
Housekeeping?
All right, housekeeping, usual spiel. If you guys can, like, share, subscribe. Get this out to as many people as you can. It's not about views, not about butts and seats, but it is about getting the warning out to people and getting people to Jesus. That's why we need to do this, or that's why we do this, is to share the gospel with as many people as we can. And with liking, sharing, and subscribing, it helps affect the algorithm. Hopefully we can get out there, get some information to people, hopefully help them understand that the times that we're in, and ultimately give them the gospel. So if you guys can do me a solid, like, share, subscribe, I'd certainly appreciate it. Also, follow me, Rumble, and Telegram. Those are my backup channels. If I get booted off of YouTube, we'll be back live streaming over on Rumble, so make sure you guys follow over there. Telegram, post updates, announcements, and other little things here and there that I can't necessarily put in video format, and I just kind of throw up on Telegram, so make sure you guys follow over there. If you don't like Rumble, you don't like Telegram, that's cool. Just make sure you guys go ahead and follow or bookmark the WretchedWatchmen.com website. That's your one-stop shop for everything that's going on with the latest podcasts and live streams, the announcements over there. The free book is over there to download, and all the other stuff that you want to know what's going on with this channel. So make sure you guys bookmark the website. Last but not least, if you guys like to support this channel and what I got going on, I got donation links down below. CashApp, Venmo, Give, Send, Go. Channel's not monetized. I don't make anything from ads, views, or anything like that. It runs solely off of your guys' generous donations. So if you guys like to support this channel and what I got going on, those links are below. Thank you guys for your support and your prayers, and your donations and everything. Again, you are the one that makes this all run, and I cannot thank you enough. So thank you guys for your support on that. One other thing, I'm gonna just mention this for the time being, just so everybody is aware. Every Friday, I am posting the Wretched recaps on my channel. These are not like subjects and stuff that I've already talked about. These are brand new subjects. I've noticed that at the start there was a few people watching, and then it's significantly dropped on the viewership, but I just want to make sure everybody knows that it's new stuff. It's not things. I'm just recapping information over the past week that I haven't necessarily talked about. So if you're not watching those, you're missing out on some other information that you may not get on the podcasts. So make sure you guys go ahead and watch those on Friday. They're short. They're about 20 minutes. So you'll get about 5 things of information for 20 minutes. So yeah, just want to make sure everybody's aware of that. All right. And that's housekeeping. So it is Saturday, even though we did one on Tuesday because we had to make up for the Saturday that had no internet. We're going to go ahead and get to our usual Wretched Weather Report.
Everybody got their fancy hats? Let's go!
All right, so for the Wretched Weather Report, what we do is we keep track of the trends of what's going on when it comes to the crazy weather stuff that's going on with earthquakes, volcanoes, storms, tornadoes, and all that type of jazz. And we just keep track of what's going on. Just so we're aware, because we know these natural events are part of the birth pains that increase in size and frequency as we get closer and into the day of the Lord and so on with that. So we just keep track of what's going on. And this past week with earthquakes, we actually got a short list One, since we did a report on Tuesday, we have less time between Tuesday and Saturday. And two, there just wasn't that many large-scale earthquakes happening between Tuesday and now. So we only got 3 to report on today. We got 5.7 in Greenland Sea, a 5.7 in Pacific Antarctic Ridge, and a 5.7 in Hiafo, Tonga. And that's about it for the earthquakes going on, all 5.7s. A couple of them out in the middle and nowhere. And then volcanoes this past week. We are currently at 41 total active eruptions, which is down 2 from Tuesday when we reported on this, but it's down 2. We're now below, again, the global average that we normally sit at, so we're spending a lot of time below that usual average. But yeah, we have 7 in North America, which is down 1 since Tuesday, 5 in South America, 1 in Europe, 2 in Antarctica, 3 in Africa, 16 in Asia, which is down 1 since Tuesday, and 7 in Oceania. So that's what we got when it comes to the earthquakes and volcanoes. I don't necessarily have any other reports as far as what's going on out with other storms and everything like that. Please continue to pray for those affected by the huge typhoon that went through the Philippines and through Taiwan. Everything going on with that. I do know that Saudi Arabia is still dealing with massive flooding. They've been dealing with that since Tuesday, and the rain just continues to drop in Saudi Arabia, so a lot of people affected by that. And yeah, so in Brazil with the tornado that went through and just ripped up so much in Brazil. So we reported on some of those on Tuesday, but continue to pray for them as they go through the cleanup process of everything that hit over there. So weather can be scary, man. I'll tell you what, the weather can be scary. Oh, and it can also be beautiful at the same time. I know a lot of people were talking about it on Tuesday. There's a couple days there of the northern lights over the northern part of the United States. So I know a lot of people were watching that on Tuesday. I think Wednesday was in some sections even brighter than it was on Tuesday. So if you're one of those people that got to see the northern lights over the United States, yeah, that's cool. Glad that you guys got to see stuff like that. If you guys don't know, there's a massive electromagnetic storm that sent surges, and that's why we got the northern lights over here. So those magnetic storms have been causing a lot more than usual northern lights in odd places, but it's always beautiful to see stuff like that. So, all right, let's go ahead and start going into the stuff that we got tonight. We got a lot of stuff to talk about, of course, and we started late on top of it, so I got to try and get through this, otherwise we'll be here all night, which I don't think we want to do that. So first up, just another update on this. I mentioned this in passing on Friday's Wretched Recap, but I do want to put it out there for everybody to know. Trump's next immigration crackdown will target Charlotte, North Carolina. This is a sheriff, so they're expanding and they're moving into Charlotte. This is the latest city bracing for the Trump administration's immigration crackdown is Charlotte, North Carolina, which could see an influx of federal agents as early as this weekend, a county sheriff said Thursday. Mecklenburg County Sheriff Gary McFadden said in a statement that 2 federal officials confirmed a plan for the U.S. Customs and Border Protection agents to start an enforcement operation Saturday or early next week in North Carolina's largest city. His office declined to identify those officials. McFadden said details about this operation haven't been disclosed, and his office hasn't been asked to assist. So we have this. I also saw an interview with Greg Bovino, who's the Nazi dude leading the Border Patrol. And he mentioned also in an interview that there's a chance that they may be going into Charlotte, which seems to be confirmed on this one. But it is always fascinating how these people, these federal agencies, are going into locations and there's absolutely no information being disclosed to or even assistance or connection with the only actual constitutional law enforcement authority in the region, which is always fascinating because the sheriffs are the only ones that are actually constitutionally constitutional law enforcement in the region, and they're not even involved with this. So that's always fascinating. Watch things like that. So interesting. It goes on to say Department of Homeland Security Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin declined to comment, saying every day DHS enforces the laws of the nation across the country. We do not discuss future potential operations. Yeah, DHS enforces the laws of the nation across the country. Sure, we'll go with that. If we jump down, this is the Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Department has clarified that it has no authority to enforce federal immigration laws and is not involved with planning or carrying out the operations. So even local police department is not involved with this. Missouri, Arias, and others said that they have already begun receiving unconfirmed reports of what appears to be plainclothes officers in neighborhoods and on transit. Gregory Bovino, the Border Patrol chief who led Customs and Border Protection region recent Chicago operation and was essential to immigration operation in Los Angeles, had been coy about where the agents would target next, but it appears that this is going to be their next target on that. I know a lot of people are going, why isn't he going into New York? Why has Trump not sent the people into New York yet and everything like that? Because I think they're preparing for something with New York. I think they are prepping because of the latest selection of Mamdani over there. I think they're prepping for something. Because if they weren't prepping for something, you better believe they'd already be in New York by now. In my opinion, at least. That's obviously something that we don't know on that case, but just from the research that I've done, they'd probably already be there. But again, I think they are prepping something for New York. Whatever that might be, the scale of it, the repercussions of it, we're not sure, but that's where I think it's happening. So looks like Charlotte, North Carolina is the next region that they're going for. Now, along with that, I want to throw this out there too, because I just couldn't help but laugh and go, my word, this is just something out of 1930s Germany if I've ever seen it before. DHS asked Texas to hand over driver's license data for citizenship checks. This is literally papers, please. If you guys don't get what's happening here. It's the latest step to pool confidential data that the Trump administration claims will help identify non-citizens on voter rolls and tighten immigration enforcement. Citizenship checks. Hope y'all are ready for that. Make sure to carry your papers with you wherever you go. Otherwise, you might get hauled off. It says the Department of Homeland Security said it intends to add state driver's license information to a swiftly expanding federal system envisioned as a one-stop shop for checking citizenship. The plan outlined in the public notice posted Thursday. If you guys don't know what that is, I got it right here. This is the thing. It's 28 pages. We're not going to go over it, but this is the official document. Is the latest step in an unprecedented Trump administration initiative to pool confidential data from varied sources that claims will help identify non-citizens on voter rolls, tighten immigration enforcement, and expose public benefit fraud. DHS approached Texas officials in June about a pilot program to add the state's driver's license data, but it's not clear if the state participated. Earlier this year, DHS added millions of Americans' social security data to the Systemic Alien Verification for Entitlements, or SAVE system, allowing officials to use the tool to conduct bulk searches of voter rolls for the first time. According to the document filed Thursday, SAVE also recently expanded to include passport and visa information. Yeah, so we are at a point now where they're taking all this stuff. Obviously they have all the data, but this is something that I try to express to everybody. That data is still all separated. Their thing is they're trying to centralize everything. That's what we've been talking about with like the Palantir system and all these things. They're trying to pool all the data into one centralized thing, which eventually will be where the digital ID stuff comes into play on that. So a lot of people are saying, well, the digital ID stuff is here. It's not yet. They're still trying to get all this stuff organized for when that time comes. But as of right now, what we got going on is they're trying to pull all this stuff together, which is going to make it so much easier for them to do a citizenship check or a papers, please check. You must verify at this time that we have stopped you to confirm that you are in fact a citizen of this country. If you cannot provide the papers and the proof that we need, we will haul you off. This is what we're getting close to. This is exactly what happened in those dictatorship countries: Russia, Germany, Italy, France, even all these countries that used to have stuff like that. They would do citizenship checks, and if you don't have your papers on you and can't verify it at that moment in time, you get hauled off. Simple as that. That's what they're working on right now. DHS says in the notice that linking the driver's license data, which it calls the most widely used form of identification, will allow SAVE to match against other sources to verify immigration status and U.S. citizenship, which will improve accuracy and efficiency for SAVE user agents. Up until this year, SAVE was mostly used to check individuals' immigrants' citizen status when they applied for public benefits. DHS has said that the aim is expanding the system was to enable election officials to check voter rolls en masse, but the agency's data sharing agreement with the Social Security Administration, as well as Thursday's disclosure, make clear that DHS and other agents can use SAVE for other purposes, including for immigration enforcement investigations. I mean, they're already walking the streets asking people for their papers and stuff now. Just wait. It's only going to get worse. This stuff is expanding. That's the thing that I've been trying to tell people is once you allow this stuff to start happening, there's no going back. You think that when they start doing this and they start having people, military and stuff, roaming the streets asking for your identification just because they can, that's going to all of a sudden go away? No. The war on immigration that we are currently seeing right now is the exact same thing that happened with the war on drugs that's been going on for 30 years now? Probably longer. I just remember I think it's about 30 years that the war on drugs has been happening. Probably closer to 40, but still, the war on immigration is the same thing. It never went away. It never stopped. And that's what they use in order to take these things away. So I hope people realize that once this stuff starts happening, there's no stopping, and it's going to continue to go on, and things are going to get worse from here. So, it's happening so fast. I keep saying that, but yeah, that's the thing. I know it's something that I think about a lot too, because you notice that when we talk about this stuff, we always talk about how it's coming and it's on its way and it's here and things are moving so fast and everything like that. But if you guys just kind of pause for a moment, and if you guys think back, I don't know, 15 years, just think 15 years ago, and you look at how fast things were going up until that 15 years, and then you compare them to how fast things have happened during that 15-year period up until now. You look at the difference of how fast things are moving and how much things have moved. You'll realize that the time before that 15 years almost looks like everything was at a snail's pace, and we were sitting in dreamland. And then you look at what's going on now, and you realize that just how fast and how far things have moved. And you realize that things are moving much faster than we actually realize. And we have lost so much on this earthly world. But again, none of that really matters for us who will eventually be gone because we have our faith in Jesus. But for those who don't have faith in Jesus, everything that you have lost is the best time that you'll ever have on this earth. All you can look forward to is a time of things getting worse and worse and worse. You've lived your best life, but things will only get worse because you don't have the Lord. For us who do have Jesus Christ and our salvation in Him, we realize that the best is yet to come. This is the worst that it'll ever be for us, and it's only going to be great from there. So that's how I like to look at it. It's kind of one of those things where it's just kind of a pause and look back and kind of compare and contrast. But it definitely gives you an idea of where things are at right now, to say the least. Anyways. All right. So we're going to go ahead and move into the bigger stuff. We're going to start diving into some things. And we're going to start here with Venezuela. This is something that we've been following for the past several months. I'm sure most of us who are here and have been paying attention to the Venezuela situation are in agreement that something is brewing. Something is brewing on this. We've talked about how the Venezuela thing is involved with Project 2025 and the Heritage Foundation. We understand that there's a lot of coups that have happened in Venezuela. There's a lot of bad people involved with Venezuela. There's a lot of interesting geopolitical situations with Venezuela, with other countries, not just with the United States, but with countries like Russia and Cuba and all those countries as well. But there's, I believe, something that's been brewing for a long time with this Venezuela situation. And so we're going to kind of do a little bit of a dive on that. Jeez. Anyways, all right. So we're going to start here. And this is some of the information that just came out in the past couple of days. It says Trump briefed on Venezuela military options as USS General Ford bolsters U.S. firepower in the Caribbean. So we talked about the U.S. Gerald Ford finally made it into Southcom. That was on Tuesday that they announced that. And of course, he's bringing along 150 jets. He's bringing along 2 destroyers and an anti-missile boat and all that, because carriers never travel alone. They have bodyguards with them. And so it says President Donald Trump has been briefed on newly updated military operations for potential operations in Venezuela. The briefing reportedly took place on Wednesday, shortly after the arrival of the USS General Ford, the world's largest aircraft carrier in the U.S. Southern Command area north of the Caribbean Sea. The strike group brings about 60 aircraft, including F-18 fighter jets, significantly expanding the U.S. military capabilities in the region and bringing the total number of American troops in Latin America to 15,000. According to defense officials, the news outlet stated Trump has been weighing several potential responses for weeks. Options discussed range from taking no action to launching airstrikes on Venezuelan seaports, airports, and military installations. And so we've gotten some stuff here and there, if you believe it or not. You always got to take it with a grain of salt, saying that they've been working on stuff and they've almost come to a final decision on what they're going to be doing with Venezuela. I believe at this point they've already got their minds made up, but if you believe that they're still kind of figuring out what they're going to do, I don't blame you for that either. We don't necessarily know, but that's my position. I think this has already been decided and has been decided for a minute. Now we have this. This was the thing. Operation Southern Spear was announced. On Thursday, Hegseth publicly confirmed that the administration's ramped-up regional posture has been formally designated Operation Southern Spear, underscoring the growing attention Washington is directing towards Latin America. And so this Southern Spear thing, gotta make sure I got the right thing, was something that kind of threw me for a loop when I saw it. Because this was announced November 13th, so this was 2 days ago, and this was from Hegseth. It said President Trump ordered action and the Department of War is delivering. Today I'm announcing Operation Southern Spear, led by Joint Task Force Southern Spear and Southcom. This mission defends our homeland, removes narco-terrorists from our hemisphere, and secures our homeland from the drugs that are killing our people. The Western Hemisphere is America's neighborhood, and we will protect it. Now, when you look at that, it's like, oh, they're announcing a new operation type of thing. But when you go and you look at the Navy website, Operation Southern Spear was announced already and was active in January of this year. So I don't know if this announcement is just a signal for somebody, which it could be. They do that stuff all the time. I don't know if this announcement is like the next phase of Southern Spear, which was already announced, which maybe it is. There's no clarification on that. Or I don't know if Hegseth just forgot that they already have an Operation Southern Spear and then named a brand new operation the exact same thing, which I wouldn't put it past him on that, actually, which is kind of a scary thing to say, but I'm just being honest. And so this is from January of this year. It says Operation Southern Spear, latest development in operationalizing There we go. Robotic and autonomous systems. It says U.S. Naval Forces Southern Command, U.S. Fourth Fleet is advancing the Navy's hybrid fleet campaign through Operation Southern Spear, which will start later this month in U.S. Southern Command of Responsibility and at the U.S. Fourth Fleet headquarters at Naval Station Mayport. So again, this is something that's already been going on. Southern Spear will operationalize a heterogeneous mix of robotic and autonomous systems, RAS, to support the detection and monitoring of illicit trafficking while learning lessons for other theaters. Southern Spear will continue our Fourth Fleet's move away from short-duration experimentation into long-duration operations that will help develop critical techniques and procedures in integrating RAS into maritime environment. Specifically, Operation Southern Spear will deploy long-dwell robotic surface vessels, small robotic interceptor boats, and vertical takeoff and landing robotic air vessels to the U.S. Southcom AOR. And so this is about long-term operations that involve autonomous and robotic maritime machines. And so, again, I don't know if Hegseth was announcing a new operation with the same name, advancing the next phase of this operation, which has to do with that, but also has to do with what they're talking about with Southcom and trafficking, or it was a signal of some type and that's all it was. So either way, we're getting some type of indicator that this is something that's been in the works for a long time, and they are continuing to move forward with it. We get a little bit more information on what's going on. We have this. It says Trump waves Venezuela strikes as U.S. forces prepare for attack order. It says Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and Joint Chiefs Chairman General Dan Kane returned to the White House on Friday for a second consecutive day of deliberations centered on potential military action in Venezuela as U.S. forces in the region prepared for possible attack orders. An administration official said a host of options has been presented to the president, and any strike on Venezuelan territory would upend the president's frequent promise of avoiding new conflicts, which he's said that, and then his actions prove that all he's doing is causing conflicts, and betray promises made to Congress in recent weeks, which he doesn't care. He doesn't go by anything they say anyways, that no active preparations are underway for such an attack. It would also further complicate U.S. cooperation with other Latin American countries and deepen suspicions there and in Washington over whether Trump's endgame is the forced removal of Venezuela's president, Nicolas Maduro, whom Trump has accused of sending drugs and violent criminals to the United States. So it looks like they may be prepping for something. And with that, especially with that information that I was talking about, the reason why I was late on this live stream is because it just popped up and I just saw it and wanted to work it in. That it has to do with this chick. This is Maria Corina Machado, and she's the one who just won the Nobel Peace Prize and dedicated it to Trump. And we have this. This is massive privatization. Maria Corina Machado offers to sell $1.7 trillion of Venezuela's assets to U.S. corporations. Very interesting. Maria Corina Machado, the far-right Venezuelan coup leader who won the Nobel Peace Prize, vowed massive privatization, offering to sell off $1.7 trillion of her country's resources to U.S. corporations. It's very interesting. Maria Corina, we'll just call her Machado, is a far-right Venezuelan coup leader who has been funded by the U.S. government since at least 2003. We'll get to that. The Donald Trump administration is waging war on Venezuela, and it can succeed in overthrowing the leftist government of President Nicolas Maduro. Machado would help lead the new pro-U.S. regime in Caracas. See, we've had theories, we've had ideas, we've had hunches, we've heard rumors and all this stuff, but the thing is we couldn't necessarily validate anything, but it appears we're finally getting a string of thinking, a string of theory that we can kind of start to validate when it comes to this. And it has to do with installing this chick who has been a US and CIA funded person since at least 2003, who has been involved with what's going on in Venezuela in more than just one coup, I might add. We'll get to that. Says Machado won the 2025 Nobel Peace Prize despite the fact that she openly supports Trump's war on her country. She has for years called for U.S. military intervention to violently topple President Maduro. If Trump and his powerful Secretary of State and National Security Advisor Marco Rubio can manage to put Machado in power, she has pledged to sell off her country's assets to U.S. corporations. She indeed did do this. She made these remarks in a virtual speech at the America Business Forum, which was the 5th of November. And Machado spoke before Donald Trump, who appeared on stage at the same event. So this is the event. Donald Trump was there. And we're going to hear it straight from the horse's mouth on her selling off her country's resources to the United States. So let's take a listen to her on this.
And this is amazing, super exciting for me. We will open Venezuela for foreign investment. I am talking about a $1.7 trillion opportunity, not only in oil and gas, which is huge, and you know that the opportunities, because we will open all upstream, middle stream, downstream to all companies, but also in mining, in gold, in infrastructure, power. We have our grid right now has a 17 gigawatt opportunity of energy potential that needs to be rehabbed. Certainly for technology and AI and tourism. You know, Venezuela has 2,800 kilometers of pristine Caribbean coastline ready to be developed. So this is going to be huge. We will bring rule of law. We will open markets. We will have security for foreign investment and a transparent, massive privatization program that is waiting for you.
My, oh my. Things are starting to make a lot more sense. But don't worry. I've got some other stuff that'll show that this will make a lot even more sense than what it already does now. We jump down here. It says this was not the first time that Machado has made this promise. Machado also spoke virtually at the Fortune Global Forum in Saudi Arabia in October, where she offered a business opportunity of more than 1.7 trillion. We all know that the Trump administration is highly connected to Saudi Arabia, right? Yes, we do. In an interview with Donald Trump Jr. in February, Machado again promised to sell off her country's assets to U.S. corporations. We are going to privatize all our industry, she said, stressing that U.S. companies are going to make a lot of money. Let's listen to what she has to say on this one.
Forget about Saudi Arabia. Forget about the Saudis. I mean, we have more oil. I mean, infinite potential. And we're going to open markets. We're going to kick off the government from the oil sector. We are going to privatize all our industry. Venezuela has huge resources: oil, gas, minerals, land, technology. And as you said before, we have a strategic location, hours from the United States. So we're going to do this right. We know what we have to do. And American companies are in, super strategic position to invest. This country, Venezuela, is going to be the brightest opportunity for investment of American companies, of good people that are going to make a lot of money.
Interesting. She's clearly, and we'll get to her background in just a minute, but she is a paid and trained asset of the United States and the CIA. She's clearly there to go in there and topple and take control of the Venezuelan country in order to establish a resource connection with the United States. She also has a major connection to Marco Rubio as well on that one to go along with it. So, pretty interesting what's going on. We're starting to get an idea. We're starting to get a trail of where this is leading on this. So, looking at her background, she was a Yale Jackson School of Global Affairs World Fellows Program graduate in 2009. So she has a major connection and an education with elite schooling over here that also have connections to the elite group themselves when it comes to global affairs. So her background is she does have an education there. This is back in 2002, where she had a meeting with none other than George Bush about getting financing for her non-government organization, the Summate, or the Sumat, however you want to pronounce it, that has to do with, quote-unquote, restoring democracy in Venezuela. So there's a meeting of that as well. And if we take a look, it says opposition candidate Maria Corina Machado pledges popular capitalism. Marina Corina Machado, possibly the most right-wing conservative voice within the Venezuelan operation, is the anti-Chavez minority only female candidate. Lacking a political party per se, Machado maintains close ties to the United States and has depended for years on her Washington-based financiers and advisors. This is from 2011, by the way. This is closely tied to the world of non-governmental organizations, specifically those funded by the U.S. State Department. The wealthy U.S.-educated Maria Corina Machado first made a name for herself as vice president and later director of the Atenea Foundation, 1994 to 2000, as founder and director of the Opportunities Foundation in 1998 to 2002, and later as co-founder, financial secretary, vice president, and director of Sumat, 2003 to 2010. An NGO financed by the U.S. National Endowment for Democracy, or NED, the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, and Development Alternatives, Inc., DAI, all three of which are known across Latin America for their attempts to destabilize progressive governments under the guise of democracy promotion. Does any of that sound familiar for what the United States has been trying to do in how many countries for decades upon decades? This all sounds very familiar with everything that we've seen. It says Machado made her way to Miraflores Presidential Palace, where she joined opposition allies in signing the Carmona Decree, an act that suspended all democratic rights, revoked the Constitution, which was 1999, and approved by a majority of voters just 3 years earlier, and installed business leader Pedro Carmona as the interim, quote-unquote, president. That's right. She was involved. She wants to bring freedom back to her country, but she was involved for actually revoking the Constitution, bringing destabilization even further to the country. I wonder why. In 2004, the NGO Machado operated was the driving force behind the failed recall referendum against the Venezuelan president. And in May of 2005, Machado had her own private meeting with then U.S. President George W. Bush in the White House Oval Office. She met with him in 2002 and in 2005. In mid-2009, Machado visited Bolivia to speak with members of the NED-financed New Democracy Foundation, and the pre-presidential candidate spent the second half of 2009 in the United States participating in the Yale University World Fellows Program. A year later, with the financial support of the International Republican Institute, NED, USAID, and the political backing of the opposition's MUD coalition, Machado was elected to the Venezuelan National Assembly. Anybody starting to see the path that the United States was forming for this chick to get into the position that she's in now? We keep going. We have this. Machado was also one of the political architects of La Salida, the 2014 opposition campaign that called for escalated protests, including guarimba tactics. Those weren't peaceful protests, as the foreign press claimed. They were organized barricades meant to paralyze the country and force the government's fall. Streets were blocked with burning trash and barbed wire. Buses carrying workers were torched, and people suspected of being Chavista were beaten or killed. Even ambulances and and doctors were attacked. Some Cuban medical brigades were nearly burned alive. Public buildings, food trucks, and schools were destroyed. Entire neighborhoods were held hostage by fear of opposition leaders like Machado, who cheered from the sidelines and called it resistance. She also led that situation there. And of course, we know she won the Nobel Peace Prize, who dedicated her award to Trump. This Venezuelan opposition leader Corina Machado had publicly dedicated her Nobel Peace Prize to the people of Venezuela and to President Donald Trump, citing their unwavering support in the fight for democracy. This chick is a pawn, an absolute pawn that's being used in Venezuela right now. This is her tweet that she put out. It says, "This recognition of the struggle of all Venezuelans is a boost to conclude our task to conquer freedom." To conquer freedom? Think about that for a second. To conquer freedom. Interesting. We are on the threshold of victory, and today, more than ever, we count on President Trump and the people of the United States, the peoples of Latin America, and the democratic nations of the world as our principal allies to achieve freedom and democracy. I dedicate this prize to the suffering people of Venezuela and to President Trump for his decisive support of our cause. Now, we also have this. This was interesting. This was back in 2018. This is from Machado. She said, "Today I'm sending a letter to Mauricio Macri, president of Argentina, and to Netanyahu, prime minister of Israel, to ask them to apply their strength and influence to advance in the dismantling of the criminal Venezuelan regime, intimately linked to drug trafficking and terrorism." So she sent out a letter in 2018 to both Argentina, who is also one of those countries that was subject to regime change by the United States. That's why Malay is in there, as well as Israel. So two very key allies with the United States right now. She wrote this in 2018 to Argentina and Israel to get involved with regime change in Venezuela. Guys, you can't write a movie script better than this. This is just perfectly scripted if you're willing to look at it. This ain't coincidence. This ain't coincidence. We also have this. Nobel winner Machado pledges to move Venezuela embassy to Jerusalem. This was this year. This is Venezuelan opposition figure and recent Nobel Prize Peace recipient Maria Corina Machado has pledged to move her country's Israeli embassy to Jerusalem should she be elected, marking a significant potential shift in diplomatic relations. In an interview with Israeli broadcaster, Machado committed to a policy that would fundamentally alter Venezuela's stance towards Israel. "I believe I can announce that our government will move our Israeli embassy to Jerusalem," Machado stated during the interview. She further expressed a desire to build a strong bilateral relationship, adding, "I promise that one day we'll have a close relationship between Venezuela and Israel. That will be a part of our support of the state of Israel." I mean, again, guys, this is why it's so important, and I can't stress this enough. This is why it's so important that us, the church, the watchers, the Christians, that we don't write off quote unquote conspiracy. Now, again, there's a difference between, the conspiracy theories and then conspiracy. You guys know that the world, or the first conspirator in existence, was Satan himself. What he did up in heaven, the rebellion that he caused, was indeed a conspiracy. It was a conspiracy against God. So why is it that the church and the Christians and everybody today, the majority, I don't want to say everybody, but the majority want to write off conspiracies, not realizing that everything that we have now is because of a conspiracy against God by Satan himself? It doesn't make any sense for those who want to write this stuff off. What we are witnessing right now when it comes to Venezuela, we're seeing a lot of a lot of stuff here that is verifying that there is indeed a conspiracy involving the United States, involving this chick Machado here, involving, it seems that Israel and Argentina are involved with this as well, and the whole Venezuela situation that we're seeing happening right now. And there's going to be so many people that will just whisk it away, just brush it off, just out of sight, out of mind. No, that's not possible. You're just a conspiracy nut. When in reality, it appears that we have something quite substantial. Now, again, as of right now, things can change. And I mean, tomorrow, all this can just go 180 and something else can happen. We can't confirm that this is by all the end all de facto reason for what we're seeing there. But we have a substantial amount of history and evidence and current events that are all working together for what we're seeing. Now, what I saw just before the show, I couldn't help but laugh because the timing of it is just impeccable. And this was at 2:00 today. This is the 15th. House Republican warns of potential sabotage tactics by Maduro in Venezuela. If you guys can't read between the lines, and I know some of you already know what I'm about to say because you can read between the lines, but if you can't, no worries. What this headline actually says is, in bold red letters, is potential false flag to draw United States military action in Venezuela. That is between the headlines on this. It says Representative Carlos Jimenez of Florida said on Saturday that he is monitoring unverified reports that the Maduro regime is preparing to sabotage key Venezuelan infrastructure in order to blame either the United States or the opposition in the country. Jimenez, who serves as multiple House Homeland Security and Armed Services subcommittees, said that such attacks could target bridges, tunnels, and refineries in the oil-rich South American country. We are following reports that the narco regime of Maduro might be preparing acts of sabotage against key infrastructure in Venezuela, including bridges, tunnels, and refineries, in order to later blame the United States or the Democratic opposition, Jimenez said in a statement. Although they have not been verified, these allegations align with desperate tactics of a collapsing dictatorship. The United States will continue to firmly support the Venezuelan people against tyranny, corruption, and any attempt by the regime to manufacture chaos or manipulate the truth for its political society. The warning from Congress follows a Reuters report this week that Venezuela is preparing a guerrilla-style resistance, which would include acts of sabotage in the event that the U.S. launches strikes inside the country. Shortly after, Venezuela Defense Minister Vladimir Pedrino Lopez ordered a massive military deployment, including almost 200,000 service members. Now, that in itself is like, okay, it seems that they're prepping for some type of false flag. They got people on the inside of Venezuela. They've already said that they've got CIA in there. They can start causing problems. And then all of a sudden it comes out that Maduro is the one behind it. And that's how you draw all this stuff in. False flags have happened. Gulf of Tonkin, 9/11. You look at all that stuff. It's all false flags. It's all to draw us into things. Now this report is like, okay, but what's fascinating is this came out and then I don't want to say 20 minutes later, this came out from Marina Corina Machado, which is a 3.5 minute recording of her. She's speaking in whatever language they speak down there. I don't know what it is. Spanish, Latin, I don't know what it is. But she put it out there. It says to those who today carry out the regime's infamous orders. And the recording goes on to talk about how she's telling Maduro, don't do the threats that you're talking about. Put down the weapons. Don't harm the people. Don't harm the country. Don't harm the infrastructure. She's basically confirming what United States Congress is saying she's pushing along that idea of Maduro's about ready to do something in the country, something crazy. And ultimately, it's just confirming that there's most likely in the cards, they're going to do a false flag, which could then draw the United States into actually striking Venezuela. So when you get all this information, you look at who this person is, you look at their history, you look at who finances them, who educated them, who brought them up, who trained them. You look at all the things that she's caused in the country. She doesn't care about the Venezuelan people. She doesn't care about the country. She doesn't even care about Maduro. She's playing her part as a pawn to do regime change in Venezuela so she can start selling off all the stuff to the investors who want to get the resources there. This is not the first time that this has happened. This isn't the second time. This isn't the third time. This has happened. I don't know how many times that the United States has been involved with situations like this. You look at what's going on in the Middle East with all the countries there, the African countries that are there, and so on and so forth. And it only confirms that this could, in fact, be a total false flag regime change to start selling off resources. Again, that's part of the Project 2025 agenda. We've gone over that, so we'll see what happens. But there's a lot of interesting things regarding this chick, especially the one who just won the Nobel Peace Prize when she has no business getting that thing. So pretty interesting. Okay, moving on to the next little hole that we've got going on. Let's talk about Mr. Michael Flynn. Oh, Mr. Flynn. Mr. Q movement, Mr. Theosophy, Mr. Christian nationalists. Let's talk about him, shall we? So this just made it out into the news. It says Michael Flynn, Department of Justice in settlement talks over $50 million claim. It says the Justice Department has been discussing settlements with two former officials from Donald Trump's first term who, like the president, claim that they're owed major payouts from the United States government as victims of politically motivated actions. The administration has been in talks since at least late summer to resolve lawsuits brought by Trump's first national security advisor, Michael Flynn, and former senior White House lawyer, Stephen Passantino. According to court filings, Flynn is seeking $50 million for what he alleges as a wrongful prosecution. So if you guys don't know, I mean, there's so many things about this guy, but let's just stay on topic for this. If you guys don't know, this is basically the dude who was involved with setting up the January 6th PSYOP. And yes, it absolutely was a PSYOP. Trump and his team were on the field there orchestrating this thing, but the orders were obviously coming from higher up. From the table themselves in regards to this. But Michael Flynn was one of the people on the outside of the Capitol during the January 6th thing, and this is what this is about, because he was involved with that and the whole 2020 overturning, the election fraud and everything like that. And so he's trying to get $50 million from the government, which is just basically just robbing the treasury at this point. Remember, Donald Trump's trying to do the same thing. He's trying to get over like $200 million, which he said if he gets paid for it because of how it's set up, they wouldn't even need to tell us that they paid him. So they're just robbing the treasury on this. Well, his background goes pretty deep with Palantir. And I'll be honest, as somebody who has looked into Flynn and who has looked into Palantir, I knew that there was some connection there, but I didn't realize how deep and how far back it goes, honestly, until now. It says Palantir has a well-placed friend in Trumpland. Retired Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, a key national security advisor to President-elect Trump, has quietly advocated for the Silicon Valley data company. This is coming from a report from 2016. It says Palantir Technologies, the Silicon Valley data and analysis firm whose biggest customer is the federal government, looks poised to have at least one powerful ally in the Trump administration. Michael Flynn, the retired lieutenant general who reportedly under consideration to be President-elect Trump's national security advisor, has helped advance Palantir's cause in Washington and since leaving government has been a behind-the-scenes advocate for the tech company. Palantir, launched in part with CIA money and now valued at $20 billion, it's much bigger than that now, has long had contracts with Defense and Intelligence Agency. We've covered the CIA connection. We understand that Palantir is one of the biggest companies out there right now, and we understand that they're way beyond just the United States military and stuff. We realize, and we've talked about how Palantir was setting up the main ground floor during the Trump's first administration, and then it was this administration that they came in and started doing all the work on everything. It says, if appointed, National Security Advisor Flynn could prove even more helpful to Palantir's interest in Washington than Peter Thiel, the Palantir co-founder and chairman who prominently supported Trump's campaign, donating $1.25 million to a pro-Trump effort and giving the impassioned speech at the Republican National Convention. While Thiel is now helping with the transition, the billionaire venture capitalist has said he has no intention to take a full-time position in D.C. He doesn't need a full-time position in D.C. because he sits above all the full-time positions at D.C. We've talked about that as well. Thiel is not at the top, but they're not down there at the political theater level either. He's one or two clicks above that. So he doesn't need a full-time position. He's got more power than all those people in D.C. anyways. It says Flynn, vice chairman of Trump's transition team, has been a key advisor to Trump on national security issues. And Flynn is a former director of the Defense Intelligence Agency, a Palantir client, which as of May had the codename Willow inside the tent company. While he hasn't advocated for Palantir in public, he has been outspoken on an issue that has become central to the company's efforts to embed its software through the U.S. military. In March, again, this is in 2016, a year and a half after leaving government, Flynn urged the Army to abandon and rebuild the existing system, which was created by Palantir competitors. The comments echoed a statement by Flynn in 2010 when he was a senior military intelligence officer, in which he criticized existing intelligence tools and requested that new technology for fighting the war in Afghanistan. Following that statement, the Pentagon provided Palantir servers to soldiers in the Special Forces and Marines. Now, a confidential email reviewed by BuzzFeed News shows that Flynn had played a role as a Palantir advocate since leaving government. According to March 2015 email, Flynn, along with retired General Stanley Crystal, acted as a matchmaker for Palantir, and he still secured a real estate investment banking firm owned by Wells Fargo. They didn't ultimately go with Palantir from my understanding on that, but Flynn was basically out there selling Palantir to other companies as well after his time of selling Palantir to Trump in the military during his time in there as well. Pretty fascinating, to say the least. Let's keep going. We also have this report. This is from 2012. It says, spy chief called Silicon Valley stooge in Army software civil war. I can't make it any bigger for you guys. Otherwise, the page gets all distorted. So, but you can see that it's right here. It says, basically saying the Pentagon functionaries are now calling one of their own top generals a corporate stooge. That would be none other than Flynn. And it says, at least that's the plan. In reality, there's a sizable contingent of troops, including some senior officers, who think that it's called the DCGSA, it's their old school intelligence data collection system, is too slow and complicated to get the job done. Instead of having that system built by defense contracting giants like Lockheed, Raytheon, and IBM, these troops have instead begged for a data mining, information visualization, and link analysis suite from a controversial Silicon Valley firm called Palantir. So this is back even in 2012. That Palantir was getting their foot into the door with the United States military. Again, remember, Palantir, of course, is a CIA company. And so obviously that transition was going to happen, but it happened pretty quick. Said the trouble started in 2010 when Lieutenant General Mike Flynn, then the military's top intelligence officer in Afghanistan and now the head of Defense Intelligence Agency, complained in a report to his fellow generals that the enemy is able to hide in plain sight because intelligence analysts and theater currently do not have tools required to fully analyze the tremendous amounts of information currently available. Flynn demanded better systems for analysis. That so-called Joint Urgent Operation Need Statement, or JUNONS, was forwarded to the Pentagon's Combating Terrorism Technical Office Support, and they decided that Palantir was the answer. Says the office started supplying dozens of Palantir servers to troops throughout Afghanistan, mostly Special Forces and Marines, who never signed on to that original DCGSA system. So basically, even in 2010, Mike Flynn was trying to get the U.S. military to adopt the Palantir system. And it goes on to say that for the Army officials trying to get the entire service on a single, sensible, intelligent network, it was enough to drive them mad. Flynn's 2010 JUNONS was clearly ghostwritten by a Palantir engineer. So Mike Flynn, his connection to Palantir goes all the way back to 2010. Again, I didn't realize how far back his connection or how deep his connection was to Palantir, but General Flynn was indeed a part of it. Now, you take this and you just stack this on top of everything else we know about this dude. We talked about his connection with Palantir here. We know his in-depth connection when it comes to the Trump administration and all of those surrounding it. We understand that he is I believe one of the creators, because I think it's an agency created PSYOP, but I think he's one of the creators, but one of the leaders when it comes to the Q movement. There's a whole bunch of evidence that supports that he's one of the top dogs. We know he pushed the Q thing, but I think he was one of the leaders of it when it comes to the PSYOP. Again, he's military intelligence and connected to Palantir and the CIA and the intelligence agencies and all that stuff. So why wouldn't he be able to do that? We understand that he was on the ground floor when it comes to the January 6th PSYOP. We understand that he's heavily circulated in the Christian nationalist movement, the NAR movements, and groups like Turning Point USA and the Awaken America Tour and everything like that. We understand that he's a follower of Theosophy. And I've shown the video, a side-by-side comparison of him reciting the Elizabeth Clare Prophet's 7 Rays prayer and forcing those in the church to recite the same prayer, which is Theosophy. This is not a good guy. This is an evil guy. He is an evil dude. And yet, for some reason, he's embraced around the Christian nationalist movement. He's embraced by so many pastors. That's why I don't trust and don't endorse people like Alex Newman, who absolutely loves this guy and endorses this guy and praises this guy and hangs around with not only people like Michael Flynn, but other people in that crew and things like that. That's why I don't trust a single word that comes out of the people like Alex Newman's mouth, because of his connection to Michael Flynn and Roger Stone and all those other people. These are not good people. They're not. And we need to recognize that. We need to understand that there is a massive, just incredibly in-depth psyop and deception that is sweeping through the church. And it's run by people like this guy. The Q movement was all wrapped up in the church. The Reawaken Tour, all wrapped up in the church. Turning Point, all wrapped up in the church. January 6th, all wrapped up in the church. And he's been involved with all of it. All of it. Every bit of it. And then his connection to Palantir on top of it, which is a company that most people in the church haven't even heard of. There's more people now than you go back 6 or 7 months ago, but I'd still say the majority don't even know what on earth Palantir is. They're like, what? You speaking gibberish? Adding on to that, his little brother, Michael Flynn has a little brother, General Charles A. Flynn, is a senior advisor at Palantir. So not only Michael Flynn himself, but his little brother is one as well. And he's also connected to the Australian Strategic Policy Institute. So think about that one. So his little brother, and if you guys don't know, his little brother here, Charles A. Flynn, was inside the Capitol during January 6th. So you had Charles Flynn, the little brother, inside the Capitol, and then you had Michael Flynn, the older brother, outside the Capitol, and they were orchestrating that whole January 6th PSYOP situation. Keep that in mind. Here's another thing. This was 1 month ago, by the way. It's from the Australian Strategic Policy Institute. It said this week, ASPI and Palantir Technologies hosted General Charles A. Flynn, former commanding general of the United States Army Pacific, for a conversation on military strategy, technology, and trust in the Indo-Pacific. So we got more confirmation on that one as well. And to add on to all of this, because of everything going on, this also came out. If you guys didn't see it, this was on the 10th. It said Trump pardons Rudy Giuliani and other figures allegedly involved with efforts to overturn the 2020 election. That involves, again, people like Flynn and both Flynn's and the January 6th situation as well. This includes John Eastman, Mark Meadows, Sidney Powell. Says Trump pardoned high-profile individuals allegedly involved in his attempt to overturn the election, including Rudy Giuliani, Sidney Powell, Boris Epstein, John Easton, and Mark Meadows, and 72 other individuals allegedly associated with the effort to challenge the 2020 election results. The pardons are largely symbolic, as no one on the list was facing federal charges, and Trump does not have the ability to pardon state charges. So that also goes along with all of this as well, as well as the settlement that they're trying to do to get Flynn $50 million, because we all know he needs $50 million, robbing the Treasury again. Now, kind of rolling, because these things kind of roll together because of connections, because everybody knows everybody. Sticking with the whole Palantir situation and kind of switching it and moving it and transitioning it over to Turning Point USA. Came across this randomly. This was in 2018. And this is from Rabbi Shmuley, which is pretty interesting, who has connections to Miriam Adelson. She has connections to this guy as well. We just talked about Miriam Adelson on Tuesday. But Rabbi Shmuley here is with PayPal founder, of course, and Palantir co-founder, Peter Thiel, who gave a fascinating speech about the uselessness of college at ATP USA rally. This was in 2018. Pretty fascinating. Also in 2018, pretty interesting, Turning Point USA announces U.S. Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos as a speaker of the 2018 High School Leadership Summit. We've talked about Betsy DeVos in the past because she is the sister to one Eric Prince. If you guys don't know Eric Prince, he's the one that created Blackwater, the private security firm. He's the one who's involved with Israeli surveillance technology. He's the one that's involved with the wellness company and all that type of stuff. I've got an entire deep dive surrounding all of this on my channel. Just go onto my channel, down to deep dives, and you'll find one that has a big title. It says Carbine on it. Go watch that if you want to know more about it. But Betsy DeVos is also connected to this. Eric Prince, and they're involved with the immigration thing. He wants to do private contracting for immigration with Trump and everything like that. If we take a look at the financials of Turning Point USA, we jump down, funding. Richard and Helen DeVos Foundation, run by the in-laws of former Education Secretary Betsy DeVos, are funders of Turning Point. So there should be no surprise there. Now, this is where we start getting into some interesting connections on this. We go to the Turning Point USA team and we look at their advisory council. There's a lot of faces and a lot of names that we probably wouldn't know, maybe some that we do know, so on and so forth. But there's one here called Craig Jensen. He's an advisory council member for Turning Point USA. Who is Craig Jensen? Well, we go to his website. I am asked about Scientology all the time. I enjoy talking about it, but my simple answer is it works. I became active in Scientology in 1974. I recommend that you read Dianetics, The Modern Science of Mental Health or Self-Analysis by L. Ron Hubbard. So they have a Scientologist on the advisory board for Turning Point USA. Well, we know that Turning Point USA is a hodgepodge, a conglomerate of ecumenical faith movements. You got to pretty much take a pick of what you believe and what faith you want, and they're involved with that. But Scientology is pretty fascinating. Now, if we look further into some lawsuits against Craig Jensen, it's pretty fascinating. This is a lawsuit from 1994. It's Craig Jensen and Sally Jensen, who are getting sued by Donna L. Page. Executive Software North America Inc., Craig Jensen and Sally Jensen are the petitioners for this, and they're getting sued by Donna Page, who filed a complaint in state court against them because she claimed to have experienced several acts of discrimination during her employment with Executive Software. Specifically, Page alleged that the company required all its employees to study the teachings of the Church of Scientology written by L. Ron Hubbard. So when he was the CEO of this company, he was forcing his employees to study Scientology, and if they did not, they would get fired, at least according to this one lawsuit, which you might look and go, that could probably be fringe. But the problem is there was another lawsuit a little bit later by two people who were also fired for not studying Scientology. It says two fired for not becoming Scientologists. This is the former CIO at Diskeeper, which is the name change from Executive, the other company that we just read. It's the same company. Diskeeper has filed a lawsuit claiming that his work forced him to take Scientology training courses in order to keep the job at Diskeeper. Alexander Gottleman and Mark Lichet were both dismissed at their job for refusing to participate in a training course titled Basic Study Manual, where both employees were told that they would be more intelligent and his personal life would improve drastically. Gottleman filed a complaint with the Los Angeles Superior Court stating that Scientology training was a condition of employment, and the refusal to take part in the training session led to their dismissal. Gottleman was told that his presence at the training courses was non-negotiable from Diskeeper CEO and Chairman Craig Jensen. So now we've got multiple lawsuits from multiple people, all claiming that Craig Jensen is forcing his employees to study Scientology. This is the same one, just a little bit more information. It says two ex-employees of Diskeeper have sued the firm over allegations that were obliged to take part in Scientology training courses as a mandatory condition of employment. Diskeeper founder and chief executive Craig Jensen is committed Scientologist who allegedly told Gottleman, who is Jewish, that his attendance at Scientology-based courses was non-negotiable while talking up to the supposed benefits of the course. Lichet refused to attend the course, and Gottleman's support of his stance ultimately led to the dismissal of the duo, the lawsuit alleges. The suit claims unspecified damages as well as injunction that would prevent Disc Lab from making attendance at Hubbard study technology courses compulsory. So multiple. So my point on this is if you have somebody who is head CEO of a company that was forcing people to take Scientology courses, to study Scientology in order to keep employment, you're telling me that he doesn't have that same idea when he's on the advisory council board of Turning Point USA? So we got some influence happening there. That's not all. If we take a look at this is the America Fest 2025 Turning Point that's throwing this. Some of the speakers on this thing. Ay, man. You just look at some of the speakers on this thing. Tucker Carlson, of course. Steve Bannon. It was as bad as they come. Keep in mind, Steve Bannon is the dude that was trying to help Epstein clear up his public image, if you guys don't know. Donald Trump Jr., Tulsi Gabbard's there, Ramaswamy's there, Jesse Waters, the clown's there, Shapiro, Megyn Kelly, who just came out in defense of Epstein, if you guys don't know. She's trying to clarify that because Epstein was only sleeping with girls that were 14 years or older, that doesn't necessarily make him a pedophile. Yeah, she was going with that. Glenn Beck, we know him. Matt Walsh, Michael Knowles, Russell Brand, Rob Schneider, Ben Carson, Ali Stuckey, Sean Duffy, Danica Patrick, who's a New Ager. Like, she's all wrapped up in New Age. Pretty fascinating. Benny Johnson. Riley Gaines is fascinating. If you guys don't know, Riley Gaines, she's married to an immigrant who doesn't have a green card, but yet he hasn't been deported. Wonder why that is. Interesting. And a whole bunch of other people. Frank Turek, Jack Posobiec, Jentison Franklin, and so on and so forth. Lucas Miles, we talked about him and all that type of stuff. But the one that I want to point out is this guy. Grant Cardone. Anybody heard of Grant Cardone? It's a name that I wasn't really aware of until I started looking into this. Let's take a look at Grant Cardone, shall we? Here's Grant Cardone. He was interviewed by, this is on Charlie Kirk's channel. This was 7 months ago. It's actually fascinating. I don't know if you guys can see that, but he has an advertisement in his thing. It says, become a premium member with Angel Studios Guild. Angel Studios, of course, we know, we've talked about them, their connection to Mormonism and all the ecumenical false religion stuff that they're doing in regards to that. But let's get back on track here. Charlie Kirk had Grant Cardone on his channel, interviewed him. Of course, he was going to be speaking at the event. Grant Cardone has a company called 10X or X10, one of those, vice versa, which way. But it's all about, you can advance your career and you can be wealthy and you can own all this stuff and everything like that and everything like that. Charlie Kirk participated with some of his events as well. But the thing with Grant Cardone is Grant Cardone and Scientology. Yes. He says, I am a proud parishioner of the Church of Scientology, like so many millions of other Scientologists around the world who use Scientology to improve their life. Not only is this dude a Scientologist, but he is the highest ranking Scientologist that you could be. Like, he's top level that you can get. So he's not just some fringe dude. This dude is big time Scientology. Not only that, I grew up Catholic in Lake Charles, Louisiana, where I went to church with the family every Sunday and attended Catholic schools. I still practice my Catholic upbringing. Today, since over my 60 years, I prayed in Christian churches, mosques, synagogues, Buddhist temples, and yes, at Scientology churches. It says, I have studied Scientology for 20 years and have been using many of the practical applications taught by the non-denominational Church of Scientology. I know people who study Scientology who are Jewish, Baptist, Catholic, Protestant, and Muslim. While Catholicism is my faith-based religious upbringing, Scientology is an implied religion for handling the day-to-day issues in life. As I was first introduced to Scientology by the way of the book Dianetics, written by L. Ron Hubbard, the same book that Craig Jensen recommended for people to get hooked on Scientology as well. So we got Craig Jensen, who's advisory board for TPUSA. We've got Grant Cardone, who's connected in many ways to Charlie Kirk and going to speak at his events and so on and so forth. Also, if you guys don't know Grant Cardone, he's a shyster. He's a scam artist. Financial influencer Grant Cardone says he can make you a billionaire. His investors claim that he defrauded them. Mounting legal troubles against the social media phenomenon have not stopped him from continuing to promote questionable business ventures to his millions of followers. We also got this. This is Grant Cardone's consultancy scam, cult-like behavior, and legal issues. Grant Cardone is a multimillionaire real estate mogul, sales trainer, and social media influencer with millions of followers across platforms like Instagram and YouTube. He preaches a message of extreme wealth, materialism, hustle culture, and disregard for work-life balance. Cardone's enterprise has destroyed businesses and plunged clients deeply into debt, according to interviews with former employees, poor clients, and business school professors. But we want to jump down to his business and Scientology connections. While Cardone insists his programs have nothing to do with the Church of Scientology, many have drawn parallels between their similar coaching models and indoctrination tactics. Namely, both Scientology and Cardone rely on an authoritative cult leader, income from expensive courses, getting members to recruit family and friends, and isolating members from outside views. In fact, Cardone openly admits basing parts of his sales training programs on L. Ron Hubbard's teachings, the founder of Scientology. So not only is his entire business model and wealth structure scamming people out of money, but on top of that, he teaches it exactly how Scientology teaches their people as well, using the same tactics for both. It's a gigantic cult, to say the least. Especially since both Scientology and Cardone promise impossible, almost magical results. That's pretty funny, magical, because it's mysticism. If you just hand over all your money and do whatever they tell you. Other bizarre parallels include allegations of Grant Cardone tracking employees on secret cameras and microphones around his offices, monitoring phone logs, enforcing strict codes of conduct, and making it almost impossible to leave without consequences. All strikingly similar behavior to controversies Scientology already faces. Yeah, pretty much. Scientology is so bad as a cult that if you try and leave, they will destroy your life. Destroy your life. And basically, he's doing the same thing with this. But we have another connection here with Grant that leads us to another person connected to Turning Point USA. And that's Grant Cardone connected to Camelot Castle. You can see Grant here with Joan Rivers, who's another. Well, we'll just leave it there. Grant is one of the alumni of Camelot Castle Icons of the Future program. Grant Cardone is a firm friend of the founders and illuminating minds of the Camelot Castle project, John Mappin, Arena Mappin, and Ted Stourton. The Mappins had the great pleasure of dining with Grant and his beautiful wife, Elena, at the Cardone's palatial home. So, Camelot Castle, Grant Cardone, but it's John Mappin. Let's learn about John Mappin, shall we? My stay with John Mappin, the QAnon hotelier. It's from 2021. It says, back in 2006, I was introduced to a man called John Mappin. He was, at the time, a prominent figure in the Church of Scientology and lived in a suite of rooms with his wife, Irina, in a grim and rather dreary Victorian hotel on a stunning bit of North Cornish coastline. The hotel itself was unprepossessing, really, hovering between 2 and 3 stars, although it had a grandly auspicious name, Camelot Castle. Then in December 2019, Mappin raised a flag over his castle that had a Q on it. Mappin had literally started flying the flag for QAnon. Oh boy. Oh boy. He said, Happy New Year to all the great truth seekers throughout history. Many were sucked into the QAnon cult in 2020, although Mappin was early to the party. The rest of us only realized its power when we saw QAnon followers storming the Capitol after Trump's speech, calling for action, which he's been globally condemned. So again, we're back to the psyop of January 6th, part of the QAnon situation. And somehow that trail has managed to make all the way back to this dude, It's amazing how this connection just keeps going. When I visited the hotel, QAnon was but a twinkle in a mischievous hacker's eye. Back then, it was all pictures with Tom Cruise and other Scientology figures, including its leader, David Miscavige, I think that's how you pronounce that, and prominent believers such as John Travolta, who filled the lobby. Today, I hear a vast photograph of Donald Trump, Melania Trump, and John Mappin himself looks over a reception. Mappin is a Trump super fan. He was early to that too, and has been wearing MAGA hats since before they were even red. Here's a picture straight from John Mappin himself with the Q flag above his castle, if you guys don't believe that. Is there anything else on that? No. So we've got that connection there. Meet the Q-obsessed Scientologist trying to cozy up to TPUSA and Trump. Don't worry, we're getting back to the turning point thing. Wealthy Scientologist John Mappin lives in a castle, loves President Donald Trump, and spends his time online boosting Byzantine conspiracy theories, including QAnon. It's not a conspiracy theory, it's a psyop, but what do you expect? He's a British right-wing political aficionado with ties to Trump's 2016 political or presidential campaign and one of the GOP's most powerful youth organizations. That's Turning Point. We'll get to that in just a second. On Sunday, Mappin said he met with a prominent U.S. intelligence official who told him QAnon is real. Now, we don't know who that person is, but something tells me they're connected to Flynn. A giant Q flag waves above Mappin's King Arthur-themed castle in southwest England. We talked about that. Online, Mappin frequently posts pro-Q messages to his social media accounts and boosts the name of the most popular Q community creators. What makes Mappin's remark distinct from the run-of-the-mill online QAnon chatter is Mappin's reported connections to political power players in the United Kingdom and America. Mappin generated headlines in 2018 when he hosted Turning Point USA figures Charlie Kirk, its founder and president, and Candace Owens, former communications director. And this was for the debut of Turning Point UK, TPUK. Give it up for John, Kirk told the crowd, prompting applause at the end of the event. And in 2017, Trump's son Eric Trump called Mappin before the president's inauguration to thank Mappin for his support and to invite him to visit the first family in Washington, which of course he did. He did indeed go and visit them. So now we're starting to get something interesting here because we got Scientology, we got Camelot Castle connected to another Scientologist who's involved with Turning Point USA. Then we have the QAnon situation. Then we have the Trump connection. And then we've got Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk, and Turning Point UK as well, along with it. So let's learn a little bit more about this connection to Turning Point. And this says the official launch of TPUK was the December 11th, 2018 invite-only event at the Royal Automobile Club on Pall Mall in London. The event was hosted by Johnny and Irina Mappin, Peter Southall, and Lord and Lady Plunkett, and was advertised as a gathering of political genius. Since the launch, TPUK has begun to take more formalized structure and has even been endorsed by a host of conservative politicians. Tell me if you've heard of any of these people, including Priti Patel and Jacob Rees-Mogg, as well as Nigel Farage. However, perhaps the most central figure behind the arrival of Turning Point UK is John Mappin of the Mappin and Webb jewelry dynasty, who not only organized the launch event in London, but also has been earmarked as the contact point for high-end donors to the UK operation. Towards the end of their talk at the RAC Club Turning Point USA, founder Charlie Kirk repeated that potential donors can talk to John Mappin or some of our other very good friends in the room. You can see them on Camelot TV Network, which is a Scientology TV thing that they do. And he's done stuff including send Trump this King Arthur sword, which you want to start getting into the King Arthur stuff. You start getting into some pretty interesting mysticism to go along with that, which we don't have time to get into, but he sent that to Trump. And that's when he went and visited Trump as well. Very interesting what's happening here. Let's learn a little bit more, shall we? This coming from the Telegraph, it says, I helped my friend Charlie Kirk start Turning Point UK, and the late Queen loved his Christian values. Pretty interesting that there's a Queen connection. This is from September of this year. It says, John Mappin last saw his great friend Charlie Kirk in May, so their relationship not only goes back in time, but has continued for a long period of time. It says they're one of the original financial backers of Turning Point UK, which we learned that as well. You can see a picture here of the Mappins and the Kirks on vacation in Jerusalem in 2019. So they got a connection there. It says, since their first meeting in 2018, when they were introduced by a mutual American friend, barely a week went by without a text message or a call between the two men. Irina and Erica had also forged a firm friendship, with the two couples even holidaying together in Jerusalem in 2019. When that mutual friend made them aware of Kirk's work, Mappin was fascinated by his dynamic Illinoisian ability to connect with young voters. I called him and said, listen, Charlie, you've got to come over and duplicate Turning Point USA in England. It says Nigel Farage had also been urging Kirk to help set up some kind of UK equivalent to Turning Point, and when Mappin convinced them to come to London in December 2018 so that he could throw him an introductory party at the RAC Club and launch Turning Point UK at the same time, the 20 or so people he had planned to invite quickly mushroomed to nearly 200. Yeah. It says Rob Burley, who's a businessman and nightclub impresario, said he wanted to give a dinner at his club with a few people, including Zach and Ben Goldsmith, who wanted to meet Charlie. And then he got a call from George Farmer. George Farmer is a British-American entrepreneur, and he's also Turning Point UK's first chairman, and was also introduced by Mappin to Candace Owens, and they got engaged 17 days after meeting at this event. Pretty interesting. George Farmer is an interesting character because not only was he the first chairman of Turning Point UK, but he was also the CEO of Parler. Remember that free speech, right-wing social media app that tried to take off? That would be George Farmer, who was CEO of that thing as well. Worth noting, 1990, Mappin discovered Scientology and became what remains today a Christian Scientologist, which, not possible. You're either a Christian or a Scientologist. You can't be both. And then if we jump down, we can also see more pictures of Mappin chilling with the Kirks as well. We'll just finish it off with this. Worth noting that John Mappin is listed in Epstein's Black Book on page 35. Epstein recorded 2 phone numbers and 1 address under the name. His main address is in London, UK, and here's the picture of John Mappin in Epstein's Black Book as well. Do with that what you will. Do with that what you will. So it seems to me, again, we've talked about this before. We're not going to go over everything. There's no reason to. Turning Point USA is not a good organization. It is there designed to get involved with the ecumenical religious movement. It's there to combine faiths together under the name of politics. And it is there in order to brainwash and manipulate children to follow into the Christian nationalist movement and follow along with the political regime, Satan's engagement for helping create this one world religion that we're seeing and creating this one world system that we have going on. Turning Point is a spearhead and all that. The actors, and I use the word actors on purpose because many of them are simply actors, and I don't mean that as they're political people playing actors or they're politicians playing. No, I mean they're just actors. Like if they weren't playing this part, they'd be on a TV screen somewhere. And so they're at the spearhead of this thing with so many actors involved that are simply there to start drawing people in, to brainwash people, to start following this this political movement, which is combining all these faiths together. And Charlie Kirk was a part of that. He was raised up in that. And he's gotten influence from so many different levels, from so many different people, from so many different faiths, that he was controlled in all of this. And clearly we have a massive connection of Turning Point and Charlie Kirk to Scientology. Scientology, while it doesn't get talked about very often and isn't one of the big flashy names that gets discussed a lot, is as evil as they come. As evil as they come. I've talked about some of this in the past. I just want to pull it up just in case we're not aware of the whole Scientology thing. But I've talked about this as well. L. Ron Hubbard learned and studied and looked up to Jack Parsons and Aleister Crowley. Aleister Crowley is the founder of the Thelema religion, and Jack Parsons, who was a rocket scientist, was a temple leader, a Thelema temple leader, and the dude was out there, I mean, as mystical as they come. L. Ron Hubbard took much of his Scientologist teachings from these two men. Now, L. Ron Hubbard had a big relationship with Jack Parsons, and Jack Parsons introduced L. Ron Hubbard to Aleister Crowley after learning that he was such a fan of Aleister Crowley and his writings, his Thelema writings. And so this trio here is the people who really developed what Scientology was. But it goes much deeper than that I think is important, because when you look at the Scientology connections, many of its belief systems and instructions come from Gnosticism, ancient Egyptian religions, which is connected heavily to Hermeticism, Theosophy, the Kabbalah, and Thelema. So Scientology is a hodgepodge, a mishmash of all those different types of religious connections. But on the more political influencer side of things, Scientology and L. Ron Hubbard basically were created by the Tavistock Institute and the CIA. It was originally created by the Tavistock Institute, we don't have enough time. We don't have enough time. But Tavistock is part of the globalist thing. They're way up there. And it was created by Tavistock. L. Ron Hubbard was trained by the Tavistock Institute that had to do with so many different psychological and pseudo-mystic belief systems. And then the more physical side of what came eventually with Scientology came from the CIA, specifically their Kubark interrogation manual, their counterintelligence interrogation manual, which includes the Alice in Wonderland interrogation tactic, which has to do with speaking confusion to control a room and to control a person. And if you look at the training manual for Scientology, training regimen number 1 is called Dear Alice, and it has to do with the Alice in Wonderland tactic of controlling a room through confusion speech. And that's the main tactic that Scientologists use to recruit people into Scientology, is they start confusing people. You basically have to try, even if you're not the smartest person in the room, you try and present yourself as such that the person that you're speaking to just starts following your lead. That's kind of how that works on that. And so the Scientology Dear Alice training regimen is from the Alice in Wonderland interrogation manual that comes from, or the interrogation tactic, which comes from the Kubark interrogation manual, which was developed by the CIA, and it involves various psychological influence from the Tavistock Institute, which takes it from Gnosticism, takes it from ancient Egyptian religion, takes it from philosophy and the Kabbalah. The Thelema aspect of it was brought in by L. Ron Hubbard himself, who of course had a relationship with Jack Parsons from the Thelema Temple, who connected him to Aleister Crowley, who was the creator of Thelema. And Lewis Carroll is involved with that, who is a Gnostic and also a part of Theosophy. And he's the one who wrote Through the Looking Glass, Alice in Wonderland, that we see involved with that. So it's all right there, kind of in a circle, in a bubble of the connections involved with this. And that stuff right there is heavily injected into Turning Point USA. They all present it in the name of politics, which that's how they suck everybody in, because you have the right-wingers and the left-wingers. We all got to start fighting for our political side to save America. And that's what we hear from the pastors. That's what we hear from the podcasters. That's what we hear from the prophecy teachers, is we gotta defend the Christian principles. We gotta do everything that we can. And if that requires us to start promoting and endorsing people like Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA and the Great America Tour, which has people like Alex Jones and Michael Flynn and all these other people, if that's what it takes, then that's what we're going to do. And that's when these churches start allowing Satan to come into the church. That's when all these churches allowed Satan to start coming in, because all in the name of politics. I need you to compromise on the biblical beliefs. I need you to compromise on the ecumenicism. I need you to compromise on all these things so you can go and save your precious country that is going to get burned up in the end by God anyways. So the choice is yours. And we have everybody who goes along with this that will sit there and defend that and basically tell me that I'm an idiot for presenting such a thing. But this is how Satan works. This is the deception that I'm talking about. And we have so many people who claim that they're aware of everything that's happening right now, who are just falling right in line with every bit of this. I often talk about things when it comes to Luciferianism, which you mention that in some churches and they'll call you tinfoil wearing hat loon bin and almost go to lengths of kicking you out. Some churches might actually kick you out for saying something like Luciferianism. Get away from me with that conspiracy theory. There's no such thing. Oh, there very much is such a thing. I've done extensive study on it. I've written about it. I've talked about it. I've done all that stuff. I don't claim to be an expert, but I know enough to realize that it's very much there. But people don't realize when it comes to Luciferianism, we know, for those who know about Luciferianism, it's the most common aspect of what they, how they operate, is they have to tell us what they're going to do ahead of time. We've all heard that before, right? Luciferians, they always tell us ahead of time. That's why we get things coming out in the news. That's why we get symbolism. That's why we get predictions in like movies, predictive programming, and all that type of stuff. They tell us ahead of time what they're planning on doing. We're aware of that. But people often forget that there's a second part to that clause that they go by. They tell you ahead of time what they're going to do because they require your consent in order to do it. How do they get that consent? How do they get that consent? Two ways. Participation. You just actively participate in it. And voting. That's how they get your consent. See, they present the politics and the voting, they present the whole kit and caboodle, the whole shebang, as an opportunity to be salt and light, as an opportunity to guard the principles of Christianity in your country. When in reality, when the whole darn thing is rigged from top to bottom, which it is, validated proof all throughout history, when the whole thing is rigged from top to bottom, it has nothing to do with being salt and light and defending Christian principles, but it has everything to do with fishing for your consent to allow them to do what they're going to do. And when you give your consent, you will be held accountable for that. That's where people start going, oh, you take it way too far. No, is you're participating and giving consent to something that some people have attempted to warn you about. question for all the people who came against me, telling me that I'm giving up and I'm not standing for Christian principles, and I will answer for not voting for Donald Trump. Did you get what you were expecting voting for him this time? Or did you get exactly what, not just myself, but there's a few other small fringe people out there were warning you was going to happen? That's not an I told you to show. So don't take it that. That's not what that is. I'm just telling you, we have a live example if you're willing to see it. You gave consent for what you're saying. And I see it all the time. I see people that are posting it out there. Some pastors and prophecy teachers too that are still somehow following along with it. They said, that's not what I voted for. That's exactly what you voted for. It's exactly what I told you was going to happen. This is why I warn about this whole political religious thing. It's just this ugly, freakish monster thing. It's got tentacles and a half-eaten sandwich in it. Because it's evil. And it's led by Satan. And when you got Scientology stepping into this thing, with Scientologists who clearly were promoted and endorsed by Charlie Kirk, with connections to Q and Michael Flynn and Palantir and the Trump administration, and on and on and on. Epstein. That should be a sign for people. That should be a sign for people. Don't dismiss it. Don't ignore it. Don't write it off. Get out of it. Get out of it. Can't stress that enough. Get out of it. There's only one person that we need to rally behind, especially now. I started off this whole thing talking about how we need to be bolder, more vocal, to not just accept things because we're afraid of stirring the pot. And there's many places that needs to take place for many different subjects and discussions. Not saying it's the only one, but that is something that clearly needs to be done when it comes to the subject of what we see going on with the whole political movement, the ecumenical movement, the combining of these movements, and with the Christian nationalist movement. And, we're talking about celebrating Hindu Diwali in the White House. We're talking about the Hindu-Jewish Congress gala that was just taking place. And we're seeing it all over the place, the combining of these religious and political movements together. And it's just, we need to not be okay with it. People are so afraid, and they'll take any opportunity just to, there's the bad part, but, there's still the good part over here. And, we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater and stuff. You know what? We need to be throwing the baby. We need to be throwing the water. We need to be throwing the whole tub. Throw it all out. And we need to be okay with standing for simply Christ. Why is that so hard? Why is that so hard in a day and age where Christ is getting thrown out of everything? And we have a small group of people that claim that Christ is their everything. But yet, we can't seem to defend him because we want to still put our toes and all these other things. It's like, why can't we just have all 10 toes standing on the rock that is Christ? That's my perspective on this. That's my perspective. Why can't we stand solely on Christ? Why do we have to start putting our toes? I don't know. I think our words, rather than joining with these other groups and start saying stuff that most of the people in the crowd will go, yeah, I agree with that, simply because the religion and the faith that they follow utilizes the same Christianese language. So it's not affecting anything. That's always the excuse I get. Well, we are Christians. We're light going into these places in order to share the gospel. Well, guess what? The people that you're sharing the gospel with, they agree with the words that you're saying, because even though they don't actually believe in the correct Jesus, they still use the same language. So you're not doing anything. You're simply going there and participating, giving consent, and endorsing something that clearly is not good. So rather than doing that, maybe we should be standing on the outside, out of it, and we should start being vocal on calling out what needs to be called out with what's going on in those things. Maybe our time and our voices are better spent doing that. But the problem is the moment that you do that, you start hurting feelings. You start stirring the pot a little bit. People are going to get, they're not going to like what you're going to say, and they may not buy your book or subscribe to your channel anymore. Oh. And these are the same people that are saying that the church is dying. I wonder why. Because you're participating in the very same thing that is killing the church. But again, who am I? What do I know? I'm just some young kid on YouTube saying stuff. What I do know, and I stand by, and I stand firmly by the words and the topics and the things that I say, is all in the name of Christ, Jesus Christ, because he is the only one that can save. He is the only one that is a light in this darkness. And unfortunately, many people are sitting at the very same tables that Christ, if he was down here in a physical form right now, would be flipping. The people are sitting at the tables that Christ himself would be flipping. And he has called us to flip. Because it is only through Christ, through him, the true Jesus, that you can get to the Father. And it's through his gospel, which is as simple as ABC. A is you admit that you're a sinner. The act of repentance, the changing of mind, turning from self to Christ. It's metanoia. That's the thing, is all these groups, the politics, the Scientology, the Hinduism, the New Age, the Christian nationalism, the Buddhism, and all these things out there that are all connected to the mystery religion. They're all tentacles of the mother harlot. It's all about self. It's all about ascension and enlightenment. And how can I become God? How can I become enlightened? How can I do this? How can I do that? One stands alone and says, you don't have to do any of that because I did it. And I give it to you for free. A free gift. And that's Jesus Christ. He's the only one. He's the only way that offers that. I find it fascinating. This was a thought that popped into my head. It's not very, euphoric or anything, but it's just one of those things that pops into your head that kind of puts things in perspective. And I'm sitting there going, Christ in Scripture, it often talks about that he comes for the poor, he comes for the weak, he comes for the meek, he comes for the sick, he comes for those who can't stand for themselves, he comes for the widow, he comes for the child, he comes for all these people that don't have the ability to go and reach ascension and enlightenment that all these religions are saying. All these religions it requires people to go and do these things. But in Scripture, how many times? I don't even know. I can't even count, but I know it's a lot. How many times does it talk about where Christ came for those who can't even stand? That's the difference. That's the difference. That's what makes it real. That's what makes him real. And so when it's talking about metanoia, when it's talking about repentance, it's talking about turning from all of those things that are trying to pull you away into self. And it's about just grabbing onto the hand that Christ has outreached to you. And it's through that it allows us to have true belief in Jesus Christ. We believe that Jesus Christ is the one and only begotten Son of God, that he came down 100% man, 100% God, the God-man, the one and only, which makes him the only one qualified to carry the sins of the world upon his shoulders, my sins upon his shoulders. And he carried it to the cross where he took my place upon that cross. He took my place, my sin. He did it, not me. He did it. And he died upon that cross. But because there's power in the blood of Jesus Christ, and he did exactly as he promised, exactly as he prophesied, and exactly as he said he would, he defeated death and rose again on the third day. For all who believe in him shall not perish, but live forever in his presence and in his glory. It is the finished work upon that cross by Jesus Christ to telestai, finished, that we find salvation. It's through him. It's through his blood and through the finished work on the cross. And we need to place our faith within that, within him. Not just believe the story of it and say the sinner's prayer. No, we place our faith in him and in his work, where he receives the glory and we receive life. And C, as we call upon the Lord, C is the act of prayer, a wonderful, incredible, supernatural gift that we receive through the Holy Spirit when we are indwelt and sealed by the Holy Spirit. Allows us direct access to the throne room of God. A direct line with our Father. Anytime, any day. There's no vacations, there's no breaks, there's no sick days. We get to speak to our Father. Lord God, we thank you for this wonderful day and for this opportunity for us to gather together in a digital way. We know that digital is being used in so many evil ways, but yet you allow us the ability in order to come together in fellowship and communicate and just be together as the body of Christ. Lord, we thank you for allowing us to do this. For some of us, this is the only friends and family and fellowship that we receive. Lord, we pray, Lord, please allow us to be bold for your name, to be vocal for your name, to not be afraid to stir the pot for the right reasons and with the right intentions. This world is growing ever darker, and unfortunately that darkness is starting to pour from the churches now, starting to pour from these quote-unquote Christian organizations, Lord, and we just pray, Lord, don't allow us to enter into those places and to be consumed by it, but allow us to speak your name against the darkness that has enveloped those places. Give us the strength each day, Lord, to ward off the deception and to hold true to your name and your word. And we ask, Lord Jesus, that you come soon. Maranatha. All right. Good stuff. How are we doing on time? Actually, not too bad. I thought we would be a whole lot later, but we did all right. Got a few questions here. We'll take a look at what we got going on. Let's see here. Chris Believer in Jesus question, do you think Trump will follow through with the 2K tariffs check thing? So I looked into that, and it's not what people are thinking it is, even though it might be being described that way. What that $2,000 check thing actually is is it has to do with quote unquote lowering the prices of things for you to save $2,000. Basically, like you're getting $2,000 from the government, but ultimately it has nothing to do with that. So if you're expecting a $2,000 tariff check, it's not going to happen. It actually has to do with reducing your cost of things by $2,000. It's just one of those things where they use certain language in order to promote it, which is fascinating because I don't know if you guys saw this, but Trump signed an executive order against one of his other executive orders, which was actually reducing the tariffs on certain things like beef and things like that, which is interesting because wasn't he the one that told us that tariffs weren't actually going to raise the cost of anything for us? But yet it did, and so now he has to sign a tariff in order to try and bring it down, which it won't. It won't come down on those things. But it's just kind of fascinating how that works. So, yeah, when it comes to the tariff thing, don't expect a $2,000 check. It actually has to do with making it so the prices will save you $2,000 a year type of thing. So that's where that comes from. Let's see here. Patrick Starr question. Government shutdown seemed to oddly come to a quiet end. Could we have another one in early 2026? I don't know. Again, that's one of those things where it's amazing. We just don't know what their plans were. We don't know if during this government shutdown, they accomplished what they wanted to do that they had planned all along. That could have been a factor. We don't know if something changed and they had to change plans real quick, so they just opened the government back up. So we don't necessarily know what the situation is with this. There's so many factors. That's why I don't think prediction and speculation is really... it's just not healthy to do because it'll lead us in places that it's most likely not going to go. It's possible that there could be a shutdown in 2026. I'm not going to write it off, but I don't know. We just have to wait and see what's going to happen. We just have to wait and see. I don't really have anything for you on that one, Patrick, but yeah, it did just kind of... Oh, okay, here we go. We're back open, type of thing. Pretty interesting. Lori S. question: the money being interchanged in the AI bubble, could this wealth end up being in the hands of the 10 nations, Book of Daniel, and then possibly distributed to the Antichrist? The only problem that I have with that, Lori, is it's all the same money. It's not new money that's being interchanged. So it's not like these companies are collecting wealth. Other people are collecting wealth off of what's happening with the companies, but the companies themselves are just kind of changing around the same money and it's not going up. So that would be my only hindrance on that. I don't really know what to make of this AI bubble, to be honest. I really don't. I'm just not smart enough, and I don't know. But it is fascinating what's going on with it, because we know AI is not going to go away. I mean, it's just, you're not going to do this with AI and then all of a sudden just dump the whole thing. There's just no way. So if this thing does pop and AI starts dissolving in certain places and whatnot, it's going to be used in it's still going to be used in certain places, but the places it dissolves, it was never intended to be there. As far as the money goes, I'm not sure, because our entire economy is hanging on the balance of 7 AI companies. So if that pops, that could be something that sends it all over the edge. So I don't know. But yeah, I don't think the companies and the money between those companies, because it's not adding anything. So I don't believe that that's the case on that. Patrick, do you think we could start seeing mass deployment of immigration checkpoints similar to the unconstitutional sobriety checkpoints we see from the police currently? Oh, absolutely. I think that's coming, boy. I think that is coming. That's something that's, it's got to be strategically timed, though, because if you put that out too early, it ain't going to end well. So it's going to have to be strategically timed. When that timing is, don't ask me. But that's definitely something that's going to require timing. I would say it would have to happen after some type of false flag, whether it's an economic thing, whether it's a Muslim thing, whether it's something, I don't know, but I think that would be when they start doing it. Couple more questions. Excuse me, indigestion here. Trace, do you think that the snap lapse was planned to do what it did? I mean, all the finger pointing, self-righteousness, and vitriol. Now we are ready for civil unrest in the National Guard. I know a lot of people were taking the angle of the snap situation was going to cause uprising. I was never taking that route. My route on it had to do with creating a legal precedent for them to start challenging other welfare programs, unemployment checks, Social Security, and other things like that, because those are kind of in the same not sector, but the same grouping as SNAP. And so I think what we were seeing with that was setting, because it's still in the Supreme Court situation right now regarding the whole SNAP thing. Even though the government's turned back on, what it did is it set a legal seed in there regarding it. So if something was to come along and the government was to shut down again, say like in 2026, as Patrick was talking about, if they wanted to just go, okay, well, at this point, we can't do SNAP, but we also can't do unemployment checks. We also can't do this. We also can't do that. They can start setting that precedent early, which means they could start taking it all at the same time, which means not only people not receiving SNAP, but that also includes unemployment. That also includes Social Security. And then you've got a serious problem after that. I think that was the route for that. I don't think the plan was ever to start causing food riots, especially since that was even what the mainstream media was starting to put forward from fake AI videos and stuff like that as well. We talked about that. And if that's what the media was saying, then it's like, I don't think that's the case. I think it had to do with the legal situation to start taking away all the other welfare programs as well. So that's my perspective on it, Chase. I'm not saying that's what the plan is. I'm just saying I think that made a lot more sense, especially with all the back and forth lawsuits and appeals and the erasing of the USDA stipulations and from their documents and all that type of stuff. Let's see. Chris, believer in Jesus. Do you know that when pigs do laundry, they call it a hogwash? Jeez. Do I have a where's that? Yeah, good one, Chris. And last but not least, Peanut Gallery. Oh boy. How many times per second does a swallow carrying a 1 pound coconut have to beat its wings? I believe it's 43 times. I actually looked this up a long time ago. I believe it's 43 times. I believe a swallow would have to beat its wings 43 times per second in order to carry a 1 pound coconut. You can look me up on that one, but I think that's what it is. So, all right, guys, that's all I got. Thank you guys for joining me today. Bunch of crazy people. But yeah, so usual spiel. If you guys can, like, share, subscribe. Get this out to as many people as you can. It's not about views, not about butts and seats, but it is about getting the warning out to people and getting people to Jesus. So if you guys can do me a solid and like, share, subscribe, I'd certainly appreciate it. Hopefully we can get this information out to people that don't know the Lord, and then we can draw them in and hit them with the gospel at the end. So liking, sharing, and subscribing does help reach those people. Also, follow me Rumble and Telegram. Those are my backup channels. If I get booted off YouTube, we'll be back up live streaming over on Rumble. So make sure you guys follow me there. Telegram, post updates, announcements, and other little things here and there that I can't necessarily put in video format. So make sure you guys follow me on there. If you don't like Telegram, you don't like Rumble, I understand. Just go ahead and bookmark the WretchedWatchmen.com website. It's your one-stop shop for everything going on with this channel. You'll find the latest podcasts and live streams, the announcements there. The free book to download is there, which I highly recommend if you want to know more about how this religion stuff's really working its way through. And everything else that you want to find out what's going on with the Wretched Watchmen, you will find there. So make sure you guys bookmark the website. And last but not least, if you guys would like to support this channel and what I got going on, I got donation links down below. CashApp, Venmo, and Give, Send, Go. You guys are the ones that make this whole thing run. And I can't thank you enough for this. I can't do this without you guys. And I'm so grateful for all of you guys. So thank you for your support and your encouragement, your prayers, your donations. Again, you guys are the ones that make this all run. And I'm just so grateful for that. So thank you. Yeah, that's that. So tomorrow is Sunday, so make sure you guys get your wretched heathenic misfit booties to church tomorrow, whether online, in person, doesn't matter, as long as it's a Bible believing, Christ following church. Again, if you guys don't have a church, you don't know around you, you don't know what's going on, again, tune into, if I recommend Pastor Jeff Solwold over on Calvary Chapel, Madison. There we go. I was going to say Wisconsin, but it's Madison in Wisconsin. So if you need a good, solid preacher, that's my guy. So go ahead and join with him tomorrow. But yeah, other than that, just be bold for the Lord. Don't be afraid to stir the pot. Don't be afraid to have people hate you. Trust me, it's fine. The only opinion that matters is Christ. Stand for him. That's all that matters. And yeah, I'll leave you guys right here. So if we're not taken out of here by Tuesday, same time, same place, I'll meet you guys right back here. Peace out. Maranatha.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.